Today we're going to talk about graphing systems of inequalities. This is going to include linear inequalities, circle inequalities, as well as parabola inequalities, or quadratic inequalities. So, a couple things to remember when we're graphing inequalities. First, we're just going to graph the equation just like we normally would. But we also need to remember to think about if we're going to have a solid or a dashed line. And we also need to remember to shade to indicate where the solutions to the inequality lie. And in this case, when we shade for a system of inequalities, our solutions are going to be where the two shadings overlap. So when I look at this first equation in number 1, this is a linear equation. So to graph this, I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to minus the 3x to the other side. And I'm going to graph this line. So it starts at 4, has a slope of -3. Before I connect my points, I'm going to think about whether I have a solid line or a dashed line. In this case, I'm going to have a dashed line. And then I need to think about where I'm going to shade. Well, if I look at the inequality, it says y is greater than. So greater than means I would shade above my line. So above my line would be over here. Okay, now let's graph this second equation, which is going to be a circle with at center 0, 0, the radius of 6. Now this circle is going to have a solid line. Now I need to determine whether I'm going to shade inside the circle or outside the circle. So typically I would test a point. In this case, I'm going to test the origin, which is 0, 0. So if I substitute 0 into my equation, I'll get that 0 is less than or equal to 36, which is true. Therefore, my solutions lie on the inside of the circle. So I'm going to shade on the inside of the circle. Now, the key to a system of inequalities is knowing where the solutions to the system lie. Now, the solutions to a system of inequalities lie where the two shadings overlap. So that's going to be right in here that I'm coloring in purple. So at a lot of my answer keys, you'll see that I only shade the part where the two shadings would have overlapped. I won't show all the shading. Okay, so now let's look at number 2. In number 2, if I look at my two equations, the first one's going to be a circle with the center 4, 3, and a radius of 5. So I'm going to go to 4, 3, put my center, and then I'm going to make a radius of 5. So 1, 2, 3. And this circle will again have a solid line. And I'm going to figure out whether I'm going to shade inside the circle or outside the circle. Now for this one, I don't know if 0, 0 is the best choice because it's really hard to tell whether 0, 0 is inside the circle or outside the circle based on how I drew my circle. So I'm going to pick another point. I'm just going to pick 1, 1 because it's right there. So if I substitute in 1, 1, 1 minus 4 squared plus 1 minus 3 squared. So I'm going to have 9 plus 2, so 11 is less than or equal to 25, which it's true. So this one again, I'm going to shade inside my circle. My second equation is a parabola. I can tell this because I have only a single x squared. So when I'm graphing this parabola, I'm going to use opposite of b over 2a. And I'll get the x of my vertex is at 4. If I substitute 4 back into my equation, So my vertex is going to be at 4, -2. It's actually the bottom of my circle. Then I have an A value of 3, so I'm going to use my pattern. I'm going to go over 1, up 3, and then over 2, normally be up 4, but it's 4 times 3, so up 12. So it's going to sit right in the top. Now this parabola is also going to be a solid line because of this symbol. Now I need to determine if I'm going to shade inside the parabola or outside the parabola. So there's a couple ways we could do this. One, you could also substitute in a point like 0, 0. Or if I look at my equation, it says that y is greater than the rest of the equation. So if y is greater than, so since y is greater than, if I put my point on the vertex, and I go greater than, which would be up, that would be inside the parabola. So that means my overlapping is going to be inside the parabola and inside the circle. So it would be right here. So now I'd like you to try number 3. When you're done, play the video and check your answer. All right, so in number 3, first I found the vertex of the first equation since it's a parabola. I graphed the parabola, and based on the symbol, it's going to have a solid line. I also checked where it would be shaded, and since y is greater than the rest of the equation, that means I would shade inside my parabola. Then I graphed my line. It's going to be a dashed line because of the symbol. And I would shade below the line because y is less than. So that means the overlapping shaded region I put in purple. Be inside the parabola but below the line. So the purple indicates the overlapping shaded region. If I were going to do all the shading, it would have looked something like this. Below the line and inside the parabola. So then the overlapping again would still be that purple area. So whether you graph all the shading or just color in the shading where it overlaps, either way is fine. Just make sure that the part that overlaps is darker and better indicated.